Hey, muy buenas noches, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. And as always, muchísimas gracias to everyone for everybody's prayers, words, and just for your amazing support. Desde el corazón, I appreciate every one of you. And before I get into the story on hand, do like, share, and subscribe. Most of all, do please share and help me spread the message. Well, today I want to talk on a personal note, right? Well, everything's personal, but this goes back to my hometown, right? Santa Rosa, and someone I met since we were kids. You know, the homie they used to call Casper from 18th Street, San Rafael. But we're 707, so they constantly went in our neighborhood and vice versa. Their neighborhood was 18th Street, but it's because they were literally on 18th Street, right? Nevertheless, at one point we're talking about, I don't know, 95, something in that year. When I got out of YA, there was a lot of camaradas, like I knew another good camarada, Ernesto from 18th Street. They called another one Tres. Well, there was a lot, I'm not going to pinpoint. I want to keep the story on who I'm speaking of. You know, Me and homeboy as kids, we're just traviesos, right? We're cagapalos on the streets, just, we're doing our thing. They used to be looked at like just followers, right? Well, kids, you know how we tease each other, but, cause they joined 18th Street, right? And, that's something that at least us from my neighborhood, we pride ourselves that we're homegrown, right? But nevertheless, again, we were real close, right? We went back and forth with each other and did a lot of dirt on the streets, as traviesos, right? Vagos. And, time came where I caught my case, right? And I went off. And, well, you guys know my story. I went to county. Right before I left county, Casper happened to went up in there for a soda gun, and basically he was a good homie, right? That was well known since kids, and he was trying to do things correct for his neighborhood, whatever the means were to take to do so. At the time, as you guys know, I caught live for both them things. In my head, I had double life sentence, and it never even crossed my mind to appeal or none of that, right? I was all at peace with me not ever getting out. So I went off and, I had a mindset and, time passed by. And do please keep in mind, I want to touch on, most importantly, how in our area, right? Or in our county jail, the first homie neighborhood had the green light put on them. And as well, how Billy, we don't seem to see it because, as a good friend told me recently, it's just what we do, right? It's normal to us because it's branded in us. So we tolerate it, we allow it. But what's really the goal? Why do we allow them in our neighborhoods? Punk us. I include myself, right? Because I was sitting down being punk, right? With things I knew we weren't right, but I was holding the line, even though, right, for our causa per se. And after all, it's just their gang, right? They want dope, they want feria, and that's what they're gonna measure what's good or bad when it comes to us. But anyways, I want to pinpoint on how we lost track of that. How within time it is why a lot of neighborhoods eventually it's like a sack of apples. You put a rotten one in the middle and it's gonna rot all the whole sack, right? It's the same what we're allowing in our neighborhoods. And I understand that it's real difficult to see because I didn't see it, right? Because it's what we're taught we're supposed to do to maintain solid, right? It's the guidelines we're supposed to allow to happen and uphold. Nevertheless, time went by and the last time I personally seen Homeboy was up in Pelican Bay. This was 2005, 2006, and from that same uh, case he had caught when I took off, right, and left him in county, he was about to get out. Up in Pelican Bay, he by himself, again, he was out to do good for his neighborhood, right? He was putting in work, opening up them ears when it came to him and the homies from San Rafael, from La 18, and of course touching base with what we all call our police, our homeboy. That trust that comes not earned, but we give it when it's not deserved. And basically he got real close with Caballo and Chopper and Enano, the two senors from 18 that I was in Tehachapi with, but they went out to the feds and they were cool senores, right? A lot different than Caballo. Caballo at the time, he was pushing for the Mesa in Cali, right? Ham, Sherm, Popeye, and Sleepy. So he felt he was on cloud nine, right? Nevertheless, he blessed the homie as they all do, just give a little bit of rope and allow us to choke on it, right? Give him a little bit of power to get out and basically connect with his neighborhood to reach back to him. And of course, Causa wise and Homeboy wise, they were both from 18. There's a big respect, especially because Caballo is from our home base. Even though we're from Northern California, we do understand, what the base comes from, which is Southern California. Again, to be sincere, I became a Sureño way before I met homies from down south, right? Even though I had families. But anyways, it's not important. We know where home base is at, right? When it came to the causa. So we're not speaking about barrio tip. We're speaking about causa trip. So the respect was there. He got out and he started pulling in feria. So much so that they started moving into little towns around San Rafael and Santa Rosa, which was, Petaluma, Cotari, Runner Park, that little area, in small pockets, and they were pulling their weight. They were reaching out to Caballo in the Mesa, right? To use his name. You see, it's a respect thing that the neighborhood is blessed by one of them in case of something, right? So you pay your respects, whatever the neighborhood wants to pay respects with. And what a lot of camaradas don't know, we have the right. Every neighborhood as a campolero have a right. If they want you, your neighborhood, to be under them, period, as it was in this case, you're entitled to ask. For example, okay, we're utilizing our avenues, we're utilizing our feria. Boom, tell us what you bring to the table, material wise, toys. Then, of course, everything circles back around to you, right? It becomes an obligation that way, not something out of respect. That's what it's supposed to be done, but in reality, it's not the guidelines we follow, right? We tend, well, at least myself, to bend over and just do as I'm told, right? Because again, we're taught to do so, right? Because I myself thought they were God on earth at one point when I started my time, when Raul was my celly, when I was holding jardins for them. Even after, when I started seeing things, there's still no questions to be said. It was just boogie. Vámonos. Whatever was required, that's what my obligation was. Nevertheless, without losing track, so much so was coming in to caballo from this neighborhood, right? And some moved into the city, Frisco, and they started making real bank out there, right? Because there's more movement when it comes to weight. But again, they were utilizing their avenues. So the minute they required caballo to do something for them, it became a problem. Next thing you know, him staying at bay, receiving, demanding, became a must. I didn't personally know the homie Gordo from Eastside 18 that was under Caballo. He got requested to go up to San Rafael and start lining everything up for Caballo the way Caballo wanted it. It wasn't no more about 18th Street doing his thing under me. It was 18th Street San Rafael doing things the way I want him to do them, period. You see the difference. Nevertheless, again, I know the homie, but I seen it throughout the years from a lot of camaradas from LA, San Diego. You know, they lose focus on game banging is game banging. Northern Cali, Central Cali, Southern Cali, China, Japan, whatever, right? There's no such thing as a soft game banging. And man, I come from a neighborhood that's a pointer, and I couldn't even start to count how many homies we had buried, right? And it went both ways. And but again, there's nothing soft about game banging. But anyways, homies from down south, some, excuse me, I don't mean to generalize everyone, but get there thinking that norteños, they're soft. And the more we tell them, I'll be honest, to those individuals that were real high power that went up there, I used to make fun of them. And I just tell them, all right, homie, going to South Park, walk up in there, todo azulote, tumbado, and represent your stuff. Or, go into PL's neighborhood, almost a Windsor, just different areas that we know, and you go up in there and there's going to be problems, period. Norteños are with it, of course, and everything. There's everything in every cause. Nevertheless, again, Gordo went back while minimizing norteños, and I guess one day to the fairgrounds they went, and he got real close with some norteñas, and they set him up straight up. They played him out of pocket. Que vamos pa acá, and they took him into South Park, and homeboy got two in the head by norteños. Who did it? I don't know. To be sincere, it ain't my place to even say it. But then that became a problem. You see, Gordo took it on his own to go with Hyenas after he got advised to not minimize that neighborhood. But game banging, it was soft, right? In his eyes. But you see, that's what all them individuals that they hold their collar up, thinking they're more than other persons. It's exactly what happens. I'll be honest, I was that individual at some point in West LA, right? Where I was walking one time with a cousin from Crazy Riders, and next thing you know, a carload came and they went slow and were asking me where I was from, and me being an idiot, my reply was, don't worry where I'm from. We don't know each other, so we ain't homeboys. Handle your business. They just went straight, flipped a B, and I just seen them leaning out with their little toys, right? And patitas, pa que te quiero, right? And me personally, I had that eye opener in person, right? I need nobody to tell me I was a kid, but I learned anywhere I went was to respect, right? Nevertheless, they don't gordo, of course, Caballo wanted answers. He requests homeboy to go up there and be his eyes, his hands, his feet, egg, whatever, right? To line everything to his liking and for him to guide. Of course, Casper, Ernie, Stress, all the dudes from the neighborhood, they couldn't explain who it was, how it happened, and most importantly, we could go hoop bang on that neighborhood. Boogie, lace up, boot up, and go to war. But that's an everyday thing, right? All day, every day, to be sincere in the city, it wasn't going to make a dent with them, nor were we going to gang round, you know. Since '89, my neighborhood's been there, yeah, there's more homies, whatever, but, you know, that reality is just like everywhere else. It's just dando y dando type of thing, right? It's a back and forth. Because if someone's that weak, as people seem to tell it, like, for example, I hear norteños say upstaters this. First off, I'm a Northern California baby, a sureño. And I have never said a norteño is this, and that cuss. I wouldn't even be calling them my enemy, right? Because if I say they're this, and that, me being on high alert with them, what does that make us? Just makes no sense, right? It's dumb. To just be sincere. But anyways, since answers weren't given, Caballo went back to receiving whatever he was receiving out of respect. Cause the people he had lined up to go up there, I guess, got busted or something happened where he couldn't get him up there. So next thing you know, we got a Huila that 18 San Rafael had a verde counting on the streets. And, you know, we're sureños. So we had to do what was told to us. Not asked, but told to us, right? Because that's what it became. It is. So anyways, the homies from 18th Street, it wasn't just us. Of course, they were hitting the county jail in town, but it was Vallejo, Frisco, San Mateo, from everywhere. They were not just norteños, but camaradas from all the little area, right? Hitting them to the point where you don't hear of them no more. You know, the second or third homie that got done for trying to do things correct for his big homie, for one that should be respected, the causa that belongs to his neighborhood, Casper, for caballo. He's the one that got the hard candy hit on him to the point where he wanted him gone, and it happened to the dot. May the homie rest in peace again. He was a good dude. Had good intentions, right? But you can't have good intentions with the dope fiend. And do excuse me, but it's what I personally consider caballo. And I know my reasons, right? But nevertheless, I'll leave with this, be be wise, there's certain things that is not an obligation. So be careful with those that tend to get in your head thinking it is. It's a must. Either earning it or having to do it. Remember when we grew up, our neighborhood is sacred. We go and pay respects to a Pili because they're supposed to be held in honor. But do answer me, everything that's happened with them, can you honestly say that's honor in that? Don't take me for it. Just sit down and analyze them for a minute by yourself. Is there honor for us to go in there and honor them, respect, waste our lives, sit down, sacrifice our freedom, sacrifice our neighborhood? That at the end of the day, like myself, I got in shot, I given my life up not once, twice, but it was part of, right? But can you honestly say that respect, that honor should be given to them? It should be given to family, to homeboys that are true. So always stay smart, stay true to yourself, and loyal to your loved ones. Buenas noches.